Many of you know Commissioner Jim Misner because he raised a few eyebrows in 2010 by defeating our Lion Axel Swanson for his current job as Cowlitz County Commissioner. Yeah. And since then, Jim has further raised eyebrows by really diving in and tackling some pretty important issues at the county level. Tourism, for example, the new headquarters landfill is also something that Jim's really dove in and done his best to represent his constituents. And I'm very pleased to have him here as a guest, soon-to-be Lion Commissioner, Jim Misner.
Good. You know, Axel Swanson, he's a great guy. And he's a wonderful opponent, a worthy adversary at the time. But even through that process, I want you to know that our last debate that Axel and I ever had, we'd actually facilitated that together. We picked the program, we picked the location, we picked the facilitator. At the end of all the Q&A, we turned, we shook each other's hands, we gave each other a high five. I don't think that happens a lot in politics, and I think it should. I think it needs to. I also wrote him a letter of recommendation for the job he's currently holding, and wrote him another one last week. He is that quality of a human being. It was an honor to run with him for this position and to be able to serve in the same capacity. It continues to be one of the greatest honors of my life. What a privilege to serve in this capacity. It's an awesome thing. You know, I think it was in 2008. 2008, I had just purchased an island. I lost my mind. Something happened. And I bought this island down on Silver Lake with a couple of my friends. We formed a little LLC. We bought this, and I was entertaining some of my best friends. Actually, what was happening is I had a bunch of brush clearing that needed to be done on the beach side. And I Tom Sawyered these guys. I really did. I told them, no, it'd be great, guys. We can chainsaws and cut some stuff out. It'd be great. Well, camp. It rained so bad that first night. I think it takes about 3 or 4 hours to get the fire going. But the next morning on Silver Lake, it was one of the most pristine, gorgeous moments I remember in my entire life. We're out in this little boat. We call it our skiff now. It's really a boat that was made for about 3 guys. There were 5 of us in it. And we're over on the west side of Goat Island on Silver Lake, and we're fishing for some bass. And there's fish jumping around us. They're jumping around us. None of them jumping into the boat. None of them on our poles. But we looked over, and this deer pops its head up over in this wetland area. And we're checking this out. I was just going, wow, you know. And the day it finally stopped raining, by the way. Blue skies. But there were rainbows around Silver Lake in ways I'd never seen before. The rainbows that look like M's. Have you ever seen that before? A rainbow come down from another? Well, that day that worked. And then there were these double rainbows. We had a rainbow and you had a rainbow over the top. It was just unbelievable. So then, as we're just taking all of this in, we see the deer. Then we look over, this big blue heron jumps out from the island and flies away. Like, this is magnificent. And I'm telling my friends at this point, it's like, yep, that's why we bought the island. This is why we're here. In this little boat, we decide to go around Walden Island, and we go over to this other little less known island called Peatmore Island. This is all the way over the west side of Silver Lake. And while we're over there and we're fishing again, a beaver comes off that island, and this beaver's swimming around. And then, and I'm not in this absolutely true, then a bald eagle comes over and it lands on one of these little pilings that are on the water. This is just insane. So we're just like, this is the most beautiful place. How is this secret so well kept? And so then we're steering the boat back to the camp. And my friend Gabe had stayed on the island, and he had a nice fire going for us because we didn't want to let that fire go out in case it was a reoccurrence of the night before. But we got the boat just right to where a rainbow was coming down on the campfire in the tent. It was unbelievable. And when we did that, we saw some geese and some ducks, and they're flying underneath the rainbow. So I'm like, look, hello, I mean, we just bought a pot of gold. This is the most wonderful thing in the world. And as we're driving back, all of a sudden one of us looks and says, you know, come on, who passed gas, man? I mean, really? Come on. Another guy goes, oh, come on, really, quit doing it. And the other guy goes, no, really, stop it. Hey, quit it. Stop, man, this stinks. What's going on? Ladies and gentlemen, that weekend was the weekend that we had discovered that the headquarters landfill had taken in chicken feathers and gypsum wallboard. It had a microbial outbreak, and it stunk up the entire valley. It happened that day. Unbelievable, huh? Couldn't believe it. I had no idea what that smell was. I actually, honestly, I thought it was Jevin or one of my other friends. That's really what I thought. They thought it was me. But I didn't get it. You know, what was that? I found out just what it was. And there was a meeting, Weyerhaeuser had scheduled a meeting in Tootle, so I went to the meeting, and at the time we were there, we figured, okay, well, we'll send some little brochures around. Here's why we bought the island. Here's what we hope to do with it eventually. And what was that smell? We found out what it was. And there was this old fellow there at that meeting who seemed pretty animated. His name was Elmer Knopfsticker. How many of you have ever met Elmer Knopfsticker? Okay. Elmer is one of the few people in my life that has ever argued with me while I'm agreeing with him. This is his personality. But God bless him. I miss him dearly. He passed away about a month and a half ago. And I'll always miss him. Because that gentleman called me. What I didn't know with that first phone call is that would be the first of about 1 million phone calls. I would receive phone calls from Elmer at 7 a.m. My wife told me, you need to call him and you need to set some boundaries. These phone calls would go on until 10, to the extent that we finally put Elmer's name on my friends and family on my phone. Literally, we did, talk that much. But Elmer had a passion for Silver Lake. And this problem that happened at the headquarters landfill was a major issue to us. Because the water in Silver Lake that very summer had some blue-green algae outbreaks. And this was kind of a new thing out there. And we thought, could this be related? An educated person would think, well, they have to be related. You got this landfill up here that's stinking up the valley, and you've got blue-green algae. There must certainly be a connection. And so I started going to all these little citizen meetings. And then my predecessor, Axel, we've been calling Axel, what are you going to do about this? And Axel and I talked, he said, well, let's put together this committee and start really working on this, because we started with citizens one around the lake. And this group was called SLWAC, Silver Lake Watershed Advisory Council. And then, I kind of jumped right in with the water quality in this landfill thing. I wanted to know everything there was to know about a landfill. How could this happen? What's going on? And is this really getting in the water? I also needed to know everything there was to know about cyanobacteria, blue-green algae. How is it caused? What makes this happen? And I care about this lake, and obviously I'm really invested. I mean, I own the biggest piece of property on the lake, so I want to know what's going on here. And because of that, at the meetings, I was fairly educated. I was putting in 4 or 5 hours a night on this stuff, and they elected me their chair. Okay, cool. So we kept going along with this stuff, and then, towards election time, I get a call one morning, and there's this familiar voice on the phone, and he says, well, you gonna run? From what? No, I'm from something. Are you gonna run? Well, what are you talking about? Commissioner, Jim, I've been talking to you about it. It's the last day you can do it. You gonna do it or not? I said, I got my hands full. I got other things going on. He says, well, somebody better do it. Might as well be you. Thanks for the encouragement, that vote of confidence. Great, yeah, that gives some soul. I talked to my wife. My wife said, Jim, do it. Jim, do it. And I called my business partner at the time. I said, what do you think about it? He said, I'll pay for your filing fee. Jim, do it. So I did. And I got to tell you, that familiar voice on the phone was Elmer Knopfsticker. That was the last time he even quasi-supported me in the rest of our relationship. Because here's one of the things that had happened in our relationship. Elmer wanted me to go public and say that the landfill was contaminating the lake. In all the research that I had done, I could find no evidence that the landfill was directly contributing to the water quality decline on Silver Lake. There was just no evidence supporting it. Silver Lake had issues, no doubt. Any semi-educated person can look into the water and see this green floaty stuff on the water and say, I probably shouldn't drink that. I probably should keep the kids out of it. But that wasn't the cause. What we found out is, and through testing, which we started doing all this testing on the water, is what it really is there's some unmaintained septic systems around Silver Lake. That's what's going on. In addition, Silver Lake is shallow. It's also a bathtub. So the water gets really hot in the summertime. That's why you don't have a lot of certain fish like salmon. They say there's little salmonoids. They can only see the little baby salmonoids. The reason is, once they get into Silver Lake, they're doomed. They use that hot water, they either die or the bass eat them. There you go. The other thing is there's a lot of carp in that water. More carp than should have been in that water. Carp take up a significant amount of oxygen. Cyanobacteria is caused from these little bacteria on the bottom of the lake bottom, and when they want oxygen, they're not getting it down there, they come up here. When they do, blue-green algae. That's how it starts. Could a landfill contribute to blue-green algae? Yes, it could. If high amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, right, all the scientific stuff are getting in, that could do it. But see, the landfill was used as an issue during the election. It was a big issue. That was the thing. Where are you at on the headquarters landfill? I said, well, my questions are just simply, where are the environmentals on this thing? What's the liability? What liability are we buying off on this thing if the county were to purchase this? The other thing is transportation. Are we going to get this stuff up on the rail? Is it going to continue like that? Well, I hear that we might be trucking it. What kind of an impact is that going to have on the roads and the community, the people that live on those roads? What's that going to look like? I need to have those questions answered. And until they are answered, I really can't support it because I don't have those questions answered yet. I didn't say I wouldn't support it. I didn't say it was a bad idea. Just simply said when I was away from the campaign, I had to sit down and really think about this. I had to put 2 and 2 together. The same as anybody in this room, I'm sure, would do. And I had to think, there's this landfill for sale. It's for sale. And whoever's going to buy that landfill is going to permit it for municipal waste, means city waste. Here's the difference between city waste and the solid waste that's going over there. Solid waste, a lot of construction materials, mill materials, waste, that kind of waste, okay? Municipal waste is far more organic. This is the bowl of cereal that got thrown out. This is the baby diapers. This is the stuff that's a lot different. So, but I had to think, somebody's going to buy this thing. Who do we want to have buy this thing? When that thing happened with those gypsum, with that wallboard and those chicken feathers, Weyerhaeuser acted immediately. Immediately, they installed piping. Immediately, they installed the burners. Immediately, they started burning that off. In the 6 years I've lived on that lake, we have not had a recurrence. 5 years since the incident, 4 years now since that incident, not once. I live right on that one. And then I started doing a lot of research on landfills. And what it really comes down to with landfills is, number one, what are you taking in? Number two is, how fast are you covering what you're taking in? What are you going to do with the water that runs in through it? How do you get rid of that stuff? How do you treat it? Those questions began to get answered. Do I like where that landfill is at? Heavens no. No way. I can't think of a worse place to put a landfill than up in a beautiful watershed. If you know, from an outside thing, I see, come on, how dumb. But in reality, Weyerhaeuser had a history. If you look through your history, you'll see that Weyerhaeuser actually had problems with landfills that they didn't own. Weyerhaeuser, I think, finally got to a financial position when they said, it'd be better to own our own landfill than to have these yahoos running these other landfills for us, because we can't walk away from them. By the way, nobody walks away from a landfill. Not solo. Nobody walks away from a landfill. So Weyerhaeuser does as they've done this, but not being able to bring municipal solid waste, they're not really hitting the numbers that they want. And then there was this commissioner at the time who said, you know, if Weyerhaeuser was ever going to sell that thing, it would be a pretty good deal for the county to buy it. His name rhymes with George Rader. So George has said that. So when I campaigned against Axel on this thing, and these things were coming up, I got to tell you, this was a hot issue. Not all across the county, but particularly North County. This was a really big issue. What are you going to do? And after the election was over, the results were in, Axel and I had talked about it. He says, Jim, this is your lead. Where do you want to go with this thing? And Axel and I sat down and we had a long conversation about what are the disadvantages and advantages of the county owning this landfill. And I want to share some of those with you today. When we first got into this deal, we thought about $20, $23 million said and done. Today, that number is about $40 million. It's grown significantly. Because one of those questions that had to be answered is, what are you going to do with all that water that runs off of that stuff, and how are you going to treat it? Do you want to continue to rely on the railroad to bring that down? Do you want to continue to rely on that? Well, after about 20, 30 years, you're not going to have that same agreement with Weyerhaeuser. They may want to treat it, they may not. And then they're going to control how much it's going to cost to do that. Then we thought, well, okay, maybe we'll just take down these belly dumper trucks. We thought, really? So for the safety of the community and the people that are on that roads, do you really want a truck that is absolutely, I mean, a big, huge container full of leachate water coming down that hill? Teenagers have just learned to drive, and there's some site limitations. No. The leachate line became clearer and clearer that it was the better idea, better way to go. And that was one of the things that drove the price. The other thing was the liability. Weyerhaeuser originally just wanted to say, look, you bought it, you own it, as there's no warranty. No. We negotiated 30 years liability coverage with them, but in reality, they'll never walk away for what they put in there. It doesn't work that way with landfills. They can't. Transportation issues were addressed. The leachate pipeline addresses half of that. The other half is that we'll truck the stuff up and not be fully and wholly dependent on the railroad. Site distance stuff we've already been taking care of. Any site issues that were on Headquarters Landfill Road or on Headquarters Road are in our 6-year transportation plan. Many of those improvements have already been made. As far as the environmentals are concerned, is that I have been really privileged to be a part of a now 2-year study has been testing the water of Silver Lake for 8 different elements in 20 different locations around the lake. We are pinpointing the problems of Silver Lake. By the way, the cleanest water that's dropping into Silver Lake right now is coming off of a little creek called Sucker Creek. Sucker Creek is the creek that runs by the headquarters landfill. It's the cleanest water dropping into the lake. See, because the 60% tributary Hemlock Creek is running through, but it's going through old agriculture land, beaver dams and whatnot. By the time it gets to that lake, it is stagnant. But folks, when we get down to the nickels and dimes of this, and why I believe at the end of the day, this is a good buy for the citizens of Cowlitz County, it comes down to this. Somebody's going to buy that landfill. Who do you want it to be? Do you want it to be an outfit somewhere on the East Coast? And when there's another chicken feather drywall problem, you can make a call to the 20th person down the line to talk to about it. Do you want to address your commissioners in a Tuesday morning meeting? The other thing is what is the value overall to the citizens of this community? Every decision that we make as commissioners needs to be based on this thing. Are we building value for the families of Cowlitz County? The long-term value here is that when your rates go up, yes, they're going to go up slightly. The rates, if we were to long haul that stuff to Eastern Washington, you would have seen your rates stabilize while it drove down what's called an Equipment, Land, and Facilities Fund, otherwise known as the ELF Fund. We were going to use that money to mitigate that increase of costs. When that money runs out, this is what's going to happen. Initially, your rates would be, they go down just a little bit. But then they're going to jump and jump and jump and jump on that long haul. The county owns it. We're going to cover our costs every year. But at a 20-year period, we'll own it. This is the difference between renting something and buying something. Taking the stuff to Eastern Washington, we're renting. Taking the stuff up to headquarters, we're buying. When 20 years is up, it's all cash. We cover our operating expenses and everything else after that is essentially frosting on the cake. That is for the ELF Fund and solid waste. That doesn't necessarily save you money in the general fund or put another deputy on the road. We hope it does, in some way it will. We haven't figured out how to make it do that yet because, there's this restricted fund. Even the state likes to arrest commissioners who try to use that money for stuff that they shouldn't. So the solid waste fund, what happens to your money? Again, we'll use it up. Right about 2024, all that money that you as ratepayers have paid will be used up in mitigating that cost. Your costs at that point are going to go way up, and so are your kids. The way this is right now at $49 a ton, we should be able to maintain that $49 a ton for about 15 years. After 20 years, it's up to the commissioners then if they want to raise the rate or keep the rate there. But the reality is that landfill has the capacity, with the amount that we're bringing in right now, to last 100 years. Last 100 years. That is long-term value for you, your children, and your grandchildren. And if there is an issue up there, and Lord willing there won't be, I think we've got fantastic staff working on it, but you have an immediate reaction, and you have immediate accountability. So where do we rate right now? Right? Why would we make a decision like this? Well, folks, if we'll look at our surrounding counties and what they're paying in their waste fees, Clark County pays $84.28 a ton. Lewis County pays $82 a ton. Thurston County pays $119 a ton for their waste. I know this stuff isn't really exciting to a lot of people, but you know what? This is your money. This hits you right in the pocket. This is our community. So a lot of these commissioner things, they might not sound really great, fun, exciting, but you know what? They matter. King County pays $120.17 a ton. In Cowlitz County, will pay $49 a ton. We are paying half, and in some cases a third of what other people are paying. And we can provide this long term. We've got the environmentals in place. We've got the transportation issues mitigated. And the liability, nobody walks away from the landfill. That's where we're at today on this. We are moving forward. We'll start issuing bonds here directly. Pretty soon, the citizens of Cowlitz County, your government, you will own a landfill. Not Warehouser, not Waste Connections, not Waste Control, not some outfit out of Joycey, but you. And we'll do our best to use every bit of information we have to mitigate the cost and any impacts on the community. Thank you all so much for having me here today, and let me explain to you why I think, pound for pound, a pretty good deal here. So, thank you all. God bless you.
try the Longview
Not
water.